Looks like we are good to go. What's up, Bitget fam? Welcome to another X Space with us. My name is CH, and I will be your host today. And for today's X Space, we are going to dive into why crypto education really matters. We got a panelist of experts to share their thoughts. So maybe you guys can do a little quick intro of yourself, so all the listeners here can kind of hear the background. Siam, why don't you go next here for us?
Hey folks, I've been trading for 21-ish years, full-time crypto, all in 2016, built and sold a bunch of businesses and run a DSV fund, or co-founder of DSV fund, which is a regulated crypto hedge fund that focuses primarily on Bittensor. So yeah, and I've written two crypto books.
Yes, Siam has authored a couple of books and makes great content on YouTube and X, always streaming. So really educating the masses there. Good to have you there, Siam. So maybe to start, I wanted to ask all of you, why do you think it is important for young people to understand blockchain and crypto today? What it is that they really need to start studying to kind of position themselves accordingly? Speaking of AI, I know, Siam, you study AI all day. I'd love to hear from you next.
Yeah, so like most people say, hey, it's good to have common sense and whatnot. And there isn't that much of it in the world at the moment. And so we all need to think from a first principles perspective in everything that we do. And for example, like the currency dilution of every central bank around the world is about 15 to 16% per year. So if your money, your savings, or your cash is not growing by at least 15% per year, you're getting poorer. And we spend our blood, sweat, tears, talent, and time, working a job or a business to earn dollars or pounds or rupees or whatever the fiat currency you have, which are shrinking, melting ice cubes. So why would you spend your life force on earning melting ice cubes? And unfortunately, that's what everyone's been doing for a long, long time. So in a world where central banks can only dump rates and print more, because there's way more, like 97% more debt on the planet than actual M1, so hard money, then they have to print more. So Bitcoin is literally the only globally scaled financial Noah's Ark. It's this tiny aperture in the big fiat dam, and unfortunately, a lot of early birds got onto that lifeboat called Bitcoin. And unfortunately, a lot of the big boys have also identified that, like BlackRock and even governments. And unfortunately, they will flood in en masse, like a stampede of buffalo, and so they will get their lifeboats, but a lot won't. So financial education, really, like you have to include digital assets within that. At the moment, we have TradFi and DeFi, but the thing is, ultimately, it will just be finance. So TradFi will become DeFi. It's just that the global sort of fabric of finance will be done by DLT, so distributed ledger technologies and whatnot. Also, by having financial education, like it will stop you. It will improve your bullshit detector. So many people get scammed. So just insulating yourself from being scammed is always a winner. And then ultimately, if you are sort of mitigating yourself from just getting poorer and having a slow death over time, which is what most people do, the upside is that you can get incredibly wealthy, generational wealth. I mean, I'll wrap this up quickly. Global assets are about $471 trillion at the moment at the end of 2024. So let's round that up to 500 trillion. Bitcoin, 2.3 trillion market cap right now. So it's about 0.5% of all global assets. That's all asset classes, including M2, global M2. So Elon said that the economy should 100x at least over the next sort of 10 to 20 years because, GDP is effectively the amount of workers in a country, and you times the amount of hours they work per year by the average GDP per worker. So it won't be long, I think within 5 to 10 years, that there'll be more autonomous AI agents on the planet than human beings. And within about 15, 20 years, there'll be far more bipedal robots than roaming Earth than human beings. And so I do see how this GDP could easily 10x, 100x, 500x. So imagine if this global asset base of 500 trillion does a 10x. So it goes to 5 quadrillion. And Bitcoin goes from 0.5% of all assets to 10%, which is, again, basically FUD at this point. You're looking at tens of millions of dollars per Bitcoin. So even if you can only rustle up 0.1 or 0.05 of a Bitcoin, you need to freaking do it.
Love it. And you got to start with education to understand what you're getting yourself into. So very, very important. Next up, I want to call on Siam. As we mentioned earlier, you do make a ton of your own content and you've authored a couple of books to educate the masses on crypto and AI, tech, and the forefront. I wanted to ask you, how are you teaching your own kids about these technologies?
I'm a little bit odd. So I had a bit of a existential crisis in 2018, and I had a whole bunch of mates around me just die. Suicide, crashes, all sorts of things. And I thought, holy shit, I'm next. So in about 4 months, I sat down and wrote out everything I knew about business and investing and crypto, everything. And it came to 450,000 words, which I think is about 8 books worth of content. And I then converted them all into video, and then I put them in one big, massive, they're all 5-10 minute long videos. And so I've put that in my will. So my wealth when I die is all in a trust. But the kids are not, they're not going to get any of my money. And they can't even manage the foundation or the trust unless they've completed all of the WAP. I've called it the WAP before that stupid song. It stands for Wealth Action Plan. So they have to complete that, and they can't get access or control the foundation until they've set up, run, grown, and sold a business for more than 7 figures. And the reason for that is because every time you sell a business, whether it's 5 figures or 7 figures, you're at a different stage in the wealth generation journey. So selling a business for 8 figures is way different than selling for 5. And so I think everyone needs to play that 5 to 9 game, which is set up, run, grow, sell for 5 figures, then do something else, set up, run, grow, and then sell it for 6 figures, and just play. The barriers to entry for setting up a business right now is the lowest it's ever been. You have freaking ChatGPT 4 and Grok 4 at your disposal. So there's all sorts of businesses that you can do with, non-J-curve businesses. So businesses where you should be in profit in the first month. If you're not, then it's not a good business model to begin with. And so, every day I'm teaching the kids stuff. So, I take them to a car boot sale and they have to sell a whole bunch of stuff. They have to chat with strangers and negotiate on prices. They've all got their own sort of debit cards. They've got crypto. I teach them. Yeah. So I'm putting them through, I guess, the Navy SEALs, boot camp, but for financial education. So I think they'll do all right. But I think more kids or more parents need to spend a little bit more time on the wealth generation education for their kids. And I know a lot of parents think, oh, I do that, they're the best things in the world. But honestly, how many focused hours does a typical parent spend on financial education with their kids? I was chatting with some friends the other day, and I worked out that he'd spent at least 20 hours researching his next car that he was going to buy, and again he spends 10 to 20 hours researching the next holiday he's going to go on. And I said, so how much time have you spent teaching them about crypto? And he goes, oh, not that crypto, that monopoly, funny money, or whatever. And the thing is, he obviously attributes so little mental weight on what is important in life that I think, he's unfortunately sort of leading his kids down a horrible path of uneducatedness, if that makes sense. Sorry, I've sort of gone off on one there. Was that even an answer to your question?
No, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. It's tough. It's tough when people are ignorant about the space and not prioritizing it. So you're doing good work in spreading the gospel of crypto and AI. So really appreciate it. I know I'm a beneficiary of it. So appreciate you, Siam. All right. So I do wanted to talk a bit about the market because, of course, crypto market is very, very exciting. We've had a very exciting week, as we all know. BTC, of course, ripped to its all-time high price this week. Alts are finally on the come up. I know it's really been delayed. A lot of people are saying where's alt season, and I think it's on its way. Wanted to ask, what are your thoughts on the market? For what does it look like for the rest of 2025? Siam, let's have you start us off on this one.
Yeah, so I guess my stance has been it's been the same for a while, actually, for the last few years. If you look at all the cycle years, so 2013 cycle, 2017, 2021, I've always thought that Q4 2025 will be most likely the next blow off top. However, it's important not to get emotionally wedded to a calendar date. But in fact, you should be more event driven. So not that crypto needs it, but I think one of the biggest sort of liquidity spigots will be central banks having to, and they will all be forced to cut rates, and they'll all be forced to print. So, for example, if we take the US, they have the biggest debt maturity wall that the world, humans have ever seen. They have to refinance $9.1 trillion over the next 6 months. Most of that needs to be done in September. That's 25% of the US national debt that has to be refied in the next 6 months. So this is why the whole tariff stuff was going on, because of Besant's three-legged stool analogy, and they're obsessed with dumping the 10-year yield, which hasn't quite worked out. But it's not just the US, the US which is up shit's creek. It's also China. The Evergrande situation hasn't disappeared. They have 70 million construction workers that are unpaid, and they're on food stamps. To put that in perspective, the UK population is about 70 million people. So they have like a whole country's worth of builders that aren't getting paid. And so China and the US will cut rates and print. And when central banks start dumping or start printing, there's an old saying that he who prints last loses, because whoever starts printing, they get the first sort of benefits of of global imports exports, because if you dump your currency, then everyone loves to buy from you because it's cheap, and then every other country goes, oh no, I need to start dumping my currency now, to try and even up the import exports. So either way, the capital inflow multiplier for crypto is still absurdly high. So, and what that effectively means is that, if $1 billion flows into your favorite altcoin, the market cap doesn't grow by $1 billion. There will be a capital inflow multiplier. With crypto, you're looking at 50 to 100x. So if $1 billion flows in, your market cap will go up 100 billion. So I think all crypto is going to absolutely go batshit crazy to the upside. You could be a blind monkey throwing darts at a wall of random crypto, and you'll be the best performing investor on the planet, even though you're just blindly throwing darts. So yeah, everyone's going to look like an absolute genius over the next 6 months. But AI, I think, will most likely take the lion's share. So so when you have a look at AI, I don't want to turn this into like a BitTensor thing, but I think, I can't see a better asymmetric trade than a full stack AI play. And then, again, Bitcoin's going to do well. Alts, ETH will do well. But don't forget the amount of strategic Bitcoin reserves that are finally being adopted by countries, states, billionaires, corporations, etc. It's going to completely legitimize everything. Sorry, someone was chiming in there.
Sorry. I agree with the macro event-driven side of things. I would like to challenge the dartboard randomization, just because I do see a shift. It depends on which category you're in, right? There's the top 20 alts. There is Bitcoin. There are meme coins, right? Meme coins have attracted liquidity and speculation on the casino side of the market. They don't have to build a real business. They just have to capture attention and mindshare. However, if you're in the alt category, I'm seeing a complete maturation of the market in which people do care about fundamentals now. The revenue meta is here. Actual traction, no longer hype, and 99% hype in marketing does the trick anymore. You need to be solving a real problem solution set. You need to be offering enough value to users that you can monetize on whatever service and platform you're using. It can't just be something decentralized and then it makes it better. It needs to be better than anything or any product, no matter what they're built on. And I think that the ones that will win will be the ones that have that quality metric and those fundamentals. And I think, you know, you see that because there were 11,000 tokens in the last cycle, and now there's, I think, something like 60 million tokens on CoinMarketCap.
Yeah, million.
And this is not dissimilar, right? There's 60 million, right? This is not dissimilar from apps, okay, or websites. When Amazon went launched, there were 2,700 websites online. So grabbing the market share and the mind share and being early pays off, right? You see that with mobile apps. The top 8 mobile apps on the Apple and Google stores are owned by the same 2 companies, actually, Meta and Google, right? And there are, I think, 27 billion apps that have been submitted to the Apple Store since its launch, and now you have millions, right, or tens of thousands. So similar things, right? The window of opportunity, but capturing mindshare is now a lot more competitive. So I think fundamentals, quality, and value are absolutely needed now in order to win.
I agree with everything you just said there, because that is the main thing that I used when looking at stuff. But it's where you apply that thinking. So, for example, just for shits and giggles, I put $200,000 in about 40 of the shittest random shit coins that you could find last year. Everything from ass coin to tits coin to SPX 6900 to GigaChad to like everything. And the 200K went down to about 80K. And the last time I checked, it's now like 250K. And it's ridiculous. Like all of these, I did this as a joke saying, regardless of how bad a shit coin I could find, they will still moon when alt season kicks off. And we've already started seeing that. Some random coin called Aura is now starting to go a little bit crazy, which happened to be in that list. And so this is why, using the proper fundamentals you just said, that's what I do with Bittensor. So Bittensor is 128 independent AI startups. So everything you said, I apply that to all of those startups because it is just the full, it's like evaluating a business. And in the PE world and the VC world, that's exactly how you do it. But with crypto, the rising tide is going to be so big that every tide will rise. It's just a matter of the risk-adjusted return. So yeah, by YOLOing into shitcoins, you're way out there on the far right-hand side of that risk curve. Whereas, the safest thing you could do is Bitcoin, but then the upside of Bitcoin is shit compared to, Ethereum. Not that I like Ethereum. I personally think Ethereum is shit as well, and Solana. Pretty much everything is shit in crypto. But the rising tide will elevate all boats.
My issue is maybe not all boats should be lifted, and I'll tell you why my thought process is there. Right, we don't have a way of consolidation in Web3. So, because some of these projects were early, 2017 ICOs, right? Now you have some dead chains that because they're on the good markets and the old season comes, they inflate and they make people rich without absolutely zero effort. And I think that's just bad for society, right? It's as old as the get quick rich, schemes, from penny stocks to snake oil. That's happened forever and ever, right?
Yeah.
These zombie chains are not adding value. They're not building. They're just making a few people rich, and they're just enjoying that liquidity and then dumping on more retail, right? And not generating real value. Maybe it's because I'm a founder and I take issue with this. However, if you're a meme coin, hey, that's a casino. Those expectations are set. However, if you're pretending to build this and that and the other and you're not really doing anything, you're just a facade, but you're accumulating value and you were early, hey, kudos to you. But I would rather people, when it comes to the old category, do allocate the value a little bit more responsibly and fundamentally. And I hope the market matures a little bit more to resemble the traditional market a little bit more. And it's not to say the traditional market's perfect, okay? You have plenty of scams that go on and plenty of things that go wrong there. But I am yearning, and I'm very biased. I built my company based on fundamentals, right? But I am yearning for that to be a little bit more of that, right? That's my only point.
Yeah. No, I agree. I built and sold a business for 8 figures and sold it last year, and I wouldn't have done that had I just gotten YOLO'd into silly things. But the thing is, ideological viewpoints and reality don't always wed up. They don't always match. And Shakespeare said it best: nothing is neither good nor bad, but thinking makes it so. So although you and I both would like Web3, or hell, Web2, Web3, Web5, whatever web in the future, to be based from pure fundamentals and value, reality is different. So money is an innate object. The thing that makes it all emotional is us stupid bipedal chimps. And unfortunately, with any new emerging market, there is a massive gap in the education. So that's why you have all these scams and snake oil salesmen, all that sort of stuff. And so the reality is that you have to observe a market or an innate object like a table or a chair like it is. And in any new emerging market, that knowledge gap is always going to attract hordes of retail or uneducated retail that just YOLO stupidly into things, which is why we have the ebb and flow and the yo-yoing of markets. And again, this is why financial education is so important. But the thing is, no matter how much financial education there is, you cannot stamp out ignorance, because that is a human trait. Because we're lazy.
Some amazing points there, and it's true. You cannot find human nature, and you have some really, really great points there. That's
we both think the same thing. I agree with everything you say.
we agree with each other. I think we're overtaking the conversation a little bit. Apologize to everyone. Guys. Let's take this offline.
I'll mute myself.
So great. No, not at all. I sure am enjoying this conversation, because I too agree with both you gentlemen. Maybe we can have the Edo panelists chime in here. Paul, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that with the altcoin market, I really agree with Siam. Like, Siam, heads up, my brother sent me a picture whilst we're on this call of a signed copy of your book, being like, I love Siam. So heads up, you've got a #1 fan there.
Hey,
so great job. He loves it. So, and I understand why. I'm not going to add too much more, other than what's really clear is that there's a few steps in this education. I think one of the most important things is really learning first principles, understand and getting to understand that, and then applying that education into really seeing how the market is rigged in some way and how to best position yourself in there. So I think with altcoins coming up, I really, really think that there should be a stricter lens that retail see this through, which is what is the utility, what's the core fundamentals that these coins are built on, and where should you be kind of approaching that. So I'll leave it there. But yeah, great to hear that back and forth there from Siam and Ignacio.
Absolutely. I could not agree more. I wanted to ask you guys, what are you most bullish on in crypto, and where should the next generation of traders and investors look into to gain an edge? Bittensor is the name that comes to mind. And of course, Siam, this is your big play. Mine as well. So Siam, we'd love to hear from you on your thoughts.
Yeah, so again, going back to first principles thinking, what I don't want people to think is get sort of, or pigeonhole me or pigeonhole themselves and go, oh yes, I'm an AI person, etc. You have to look for virgin landscapes, virgin networks, etc. Because that's where all of the money is. That's where all of it's a growing mountain. So what you don't want to do is focus your life force, your energy, your time and money into a mountain that's been exhaustively mined. So for example, in the UK, every Tom, Dick and Harry is a property investor. And that is like probably the worst asset class to play with right now, doing HMOs or doing up and flipping. The yield isn't there, or the capital upside really, because it's a mined mountain. It's been mined heavily for the last 50 odd years. So if you go back to the 60s and 80s, computing and coding was the virgin landscape. Anyone that nailed that became billionaires. Then you had the internet, which was a booming virgin ecosystem landscape. Anyone that nailed that became billionaires. Zuckerberg, Bezos, Musk, all those sorts of people. And these virgin landscapes are obviously vary in different sizes. You had the App Store in 2009. You had crypto from really 2013 onwards. And then Ethereum itself, when that launched ERC20, that created a brand new virgin landscape where anyone in the world could create a decentralized app. And, loads of things that launched on Ethereum boomed, and it dragged ETH price up with it because it was a virgin landscape. So for me as an investor, at the moment, yes, I'm all in on AI, but it doesn't mean that I'm going to be all in on AI forever. It's just that at the moment, it's the burgeoning, growing mountain. It's teeny weeny. It's just a lump in the landscape at the moment, but it will be bigger than Everest. It's that growing. It's like internet is like this 30-year hype phase. Like the internet sort of cycle is still growing. But AI will dwarf anything that the internet was and will become. It will be life. And so if you look at, again, going back to first principles, with the creation of TCP/IP, which led to the birth of the World Wide Web and the internet as we know it, that created a global network of information transfer. And then you have the Bitcoin protocol, which created a global network of information and wealth transfer. And now we have the third coming, which is Bittensor, as you mentioned, SCH, which is a global network of information, wealth, and intelligence transfer, dissemination, and relay. It is the World Wide Web of AI. So that's why, I set up a hedge fund, and we are the world's first and only hedge fund that's 100% in decentralized AI, because this is a growing mountain that no one has really cottoned on to it yet. And going back to, that previous sort of chat that we had earlier, 15 minutes ago about real world fundamentals and all that sort of stuff, I completely agree with that, because so Bittensor is effectively this umbrella of decentralized AI startups. Each startup has, 3 to 20 odd engineers in it. They're all doing something different. And so Bittensor is this smorgasbord, this buffet, like a nice hotel buffet, where you can choose to invest in any of them individually, or you can just buy the overall ticker. It's like the S&P 500 for AI. You either buy the S&P 500 tracker, like a typical Vanguard tracker, and then just get the upside or downside of all of the S&P 500, or you just buy the Mag 7. So yeah, Bittensor is that, and it's a very deep rabbit hole. And actually, I think you should check out some of the videos that CH has put out. You've put out some pretty good videos, buddy.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. And of course, same goes to you. I was just watching your latest on YouTube explaining Bittensor. So I also encourage everyone to go and check that out if you need somewhere to start. Good stuff for sure. If you were to just give one tip to someone who's very curious and interested about Web3 but don't know where to start, what would you say to this person? Actually, Siam, you're going to love this. For the last Christmas and this year's my closest friends and family members' birthdays or weddings and anybody close to me, the best gift that I can give them is Tao. And that's what I've been giving them for the past year. And I know all I tell them is that, hey, this is a gift for me to you, but you need to hold on to it. You're not selling it for the next 5 to 10 years. Trust me, just hold on to it. And that's what I've been giving.
Nice. It's funny what he mentioned. About 5 years ago, just for shits and giggles, I created 20 different wallets, and I put $50 worth of ETH in those dollars, in those wallets, and I just stored the 12-word seed phrase in like a Google Keep note thing on my phone. And every time I went to a restaurant and the waiter or waitress was really good, I'd give them the 12-word seed phrase and say, "Hey, look, I've put some crypto in there. You're gonna have to learn to figure it out." And I told them it was ETH. And I think I used to check up on those wallets, and like 19 of them were like unclaimed or whatnot. And then one of them, someone found me and went, "Hey, you gave me a $5,000 tip," or something crazy like that. It must have been just before the 2021 bull market, and it probably put more than $50 in. But yeah, it was really cool. I was like, wow. So one person actually took action, which was pretty cool.
That's amazing. You found ETH at like $9 or something, right?
Yeah, I went all in on ETH at $9. Yeah, in 2016.
Crazy, amazing. Well, then what would be the one tip that you would share with someone if they were just getting in?
learn how to use AI properly. I know it's so cliche, but like most people are just using Grok or ChatGPT just like a like a slightly smarter Google search. Like, what is the weather tomorrow, or stuff like that. But like, if you, I mean, now's not the time, but I would just say learn how to use AI tools for your benefit, to make yourself a far more valuable human being, because it's not humans. Like AI isn't going to displace humans. It's eventually it will, but initially it's other humans armed with AI that will displace other humans. But you can 10x your value in this world just by using better. So spend 100 hours of focused research on how you can, use AI for the business marketplace. So that's what I would say.
Yeah, love that. Appreciate you. Well, that about concludes the space. Thank you so much for taking the time and joining us here today. And a special thanks to our panelists here for providing just some amazing insights. I know I certainly had a lot of good takeaways. Really appreciate you all.